Right, let's look at the free tier and see what we can find that's in Windows. So I think the Windows Server 2019 page could be fine, or the page with containers, because we don't need containers, or the 2016, because we just want to have a simple Windows image. I think the 2016 one would work for us. Yeah, let's try this one. So what we'll do is we'll set up the instance, say it's free tier, 1 CPU, 1 gig memory, right, and we say review and launch. We'll check everything, check the instance details, and we say launch. Now here's the cool thing, so you'll be presented with a public and a private key that you need to choose. So you can either create a key pair or choose existing key pair. In this case, if you already have a key pair, you can just use PuTTY-gen to generate a key pair, or you can create the existing key pair. So I would say create a new key pair, and then you give it a name, so we'll call it Windows, and we'll download it. And we say save. So now I've saved our key pair, right? And we're going to launch our instance. So launching our instance now by saving our key pair, and we'll just give information about the instance launching and stuff like that. When you go to view instance, it will show you that the instance is starting up still. As you can see, it's in pending state. Right, so far we've covered the part where we start a new Windows 2016 server instance, and we want to see if the server instance can, let's say you want to install any software, and see you can create that as a base image or master image so that your students can use that AMI as a public AMI and re-download or set up the instance the same way, and then the student will have the same copy as your main image when you set it up, right? So for our next setup, since we've downloaded our public key or perm file, we're going to open PuTTY-gen, because PuTTY-gen will allow us to use that key and generate a private key. So we're going to go to file, and we're going to say load the key, and we're going to go to our C drive, we'll copy the key, and the AWS, and we have to save your files to see the key. There's our key, right? And we say open, then we'll load the key and we'll tell the key has been supported successfully. We can, however, here make it more difficult and create the key passphrase and make it more tricky. But since our parameters on RSA encryption, we should be fine. What we then do is we save this as a private key. This is for you to log into your instance. So we save it as a private key, we say yes, and we say Windows private key, and we say save. Right, now you can close PuTTY-gen. Your instance is running, it's initializing still, so let's go back to our instance. Right, so our instance is still saying it's running and initializing, so let's wait till that's done. What we can also see is we can see there's an IP address and a public IP address for our instance, and that just gives you more information. So if we click on our instance, it's still initializing, so we can't do anything. We can say connect. Under connect, you could start a normal remote desktop, so you can download the remote desktop file. There's your username, there's your password, so you can set your password. So you could also use the session manager, but there will be permission errors. So let's download the remote desktop file, and as the file's downloading, we save this also under AWS. Then here's our IP address, our name, and then we can also say get password. So the password would be, we'll use the key pair. So we'll say choose file, and we'll look for our key pair that we saved earlier in our C drive. Find AWS, and remember we need the instruction says following key pair was associated with the instance created. In order to retrieve the password, you need to specify the part of the key pair on the local machine. So you need to specify the part of this key pair on the local machine. So which would be this one. Let me say open. There's our key. Now we can set the correct password, and there's our password, right? Then we can copy the password, but let's go to our remote desktop connection. So by clicking on remote desktop connection, it will then open up our new connection. So let's open up our remote connection. Right, so our remote connection is gonna connect now. It will ask for you to have a connect to it, and we say connect. A couple of things will happen now. It will either ask the password because you already have your IP address. So now you have to go back to your instance. So we're back in an instance of cloud. We have our password here. We copy the password, and we go back to our instance and we say paste. There's our password. We can remember the password, and we say OK. And then you just say yes. While it's configuring remote connection, you can then go ahead and close your. So you can close this now because you already have your remote session running. As you can see, it did some status checks. If we go back to our remote connection, you'll see that it's busy logging us into our instance. So this is how you can start up your own instance, and then you can start configuring it. So what we're going to try to do is configure a software. Well, we don't need to do that, but that is what you can do further onwards. And when you've done with configuring your instance, right, so we can see here, here's our instance. We can open up our windows, we can install stuff, we have a file explorer also. Remember our instance is running on 1 gig of memory, so it won't be that fast unless you set it to be fast. Could say yes to that. And if we go to our PC and right click, this is where you can now, depending on your course, it can also be a Windows Server course as well. You can now let students now do some troubleshooting and things like that. Right, so you can see here we've got 1 gig memory, and we've got 240 gigahertz CPU. So for instance, you want the student maybe to look at the CPU and look at the performance. Maybe also look at how many cores is there, and then you can also see that at the moment we only see 1 CPU, so there's not much we can do. But this is just to show you what 1 CPU virtual CPU can do. In this case, okay, depending on what course you're going to do, that's all up to you. But this is where you can now configure things. You have your IP address, you can set things up, and yeah. So that is how you can set up your own Windows instance using AWS Cloud, and the student can just log in via the remote desktop connection, and you don't need to have another PC if it doesn't have the hardware and software. Alright. Okay, so the next thing would be, if you're done with your instance and you've done with everything, you can go ahead and close your instance if you want to, or you could do the following. You can stop here, close your session, and just say yes to connect, disconnected. And while you're back at your screen, you see your session running. you have an option to go to the image and say create an image. By creating an image, you're now storing this as a master image. And this master image will then be your way of saying that the student should then use this master image that you already customized to start up his own copy of it and do the same task that you need to do. So here you can give the instance name. You can say Windows 16. Okay, so after we enter our image name, we choose the image description, and then we'll just call it virtual lab master. We don't need to add a no reboot. And then the last step would be to just double check all our preferences, and then we say create image. And that's it. Now you're creating an image. That image will be stored under your AMI images under public, first under personal or private, and then you have to go change it and make it in a public image so that your students can see the image and use that as a master image. You can also now stop your instance and then head over to the AMI and check that your image is there. Alright, there's your image. So this image, after it's done compiling and doing all its status pending, that's in pending status, it will allow you then to make it a public image, and then you can move it to the public images directory, and then students can use that to build their master image using the AMI ID. Right, thank you.